ANMAtalks is an initiative for sharing knowledge between students, staff and management of the Nordic and Baltic Academies for Higher Music Education and anyone else interested. Welcome to this 7th edition, ANMAtalks, Artistic Citizenship, Responsibility or Possibility. Today's topic is artistic citizenship, as I mentioned briefly earlier. And this topic is something that's definitely coming more and more on the agenda within higher music education in general. And that's why we are going to talk about it today. We're also arranging another ANMAtalk early next year, also about artistic citizenship. So this is the first step in that process. So I'm going to ask our lovely panel to introduce themselves. And I think we're going to start with you, Maria. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this panel and this important topic of artistic citizenship. And my name is Maria Westvall. I'm a professor of music education at the Rhythmic Music Conservatoire in Copenhagen. I am from Sweden, so I have a Swedish background, and previously to working in Copenhagen, I've been working in Sweden and also quite a lot internationally in Brazil, in Ireland, and so on. I'm currently, my research is quite focused around this topic of artistic citizenship, which also includes different parts of music education, like participatory performances and also the concept of musicking, of course. And at RMC, we have started a research center, CReArC, Copenhagen Center for Research in Artistic Citizenship, where we actually explore this kind of compound concept of artistic and citizenship from different angles. And we have a network of scholars. We are 7 scholars within music education, musicology, ethnology, and so on that actually work together, and we write together. And the important thing here is that we come from different contexts, which I think is a very important part of in different national contexts, but also political contexts, also where education and arts have different kinds of roles. So for us, it's very beneficial to meet and to discuss these aspects also, so it doesn't become a very Eurocentric or Western idea about artistic citizenship. So this is what I'm working with currently. This is my priority, but previously I have worked quite a lot with music and migration and diasporic experiences. And I've been involved in a project in Sweden where we have investigated the role of music in immigrant associations. For instance, and I also been working with intercultural aspects of music education for quite long.
Thank you so much, Maria. And Eline?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Eline. I'm a recently graduated alumni of the LUCA School of Arts in Belgium. I'm a music student. I studied music education. And for my master thesis, I explored a little bit more the concept of artistic citizenship. I will talk about it later, but I also wanted to say that I am a music teacher at the moment at a music school here in Belgium, in Leuven. And I teach small kids, but also adults. And in my master's, as I told you, I started 2 projects, what I'm still doing it now. One project was called Samenklank. And Samenklank, we gathered women from our community here in my city to sing together. So it was around women with immigrant backgrounds, so refugees. And I started that initiative because I already opened my house to refugees and give them bed and food. But as a music student, I also wanted to do something with art, with my music. I was very eager to bring not only the human side of me, but also the artist to the women and the immigrants. So that's why I started Samenklank. And then as a second project, I started Kwijkersparade, I'm very sure that aware that it's a very Dutch word. Parade means, what is it in English? When you have a big carnival stuff going into the city and everybody looks at the street and waves. What is that called in English?
Parade.
Parade. Thank you, Camilla. Wonderful. So the name is Parade. And what we did is we brought people that are vulnerable in our society, like people with mental disabilities, people in poverty, and people with immigrants and refugee background, together to start to make our own songs, so around songwriting. And we did it as a goal to be part of that parade once a year. So that's are the true projects that I've been involving with in my community and in my society. There you go.
Thank you so much, Eline. Luckily, your voice is coming through, but there is quite a lot of noise on your... Could you try to disconnect your headset and then connect it again while Keld is speaking? Then we'll see if that improves it. Thank you. Okay, so we were supposed to have Nana Schneiderman, who's an anthropologist, with us today, but unfortunately she has fallen ill. But luckily, Keld has agreed to step into the panel and contribute in her place, and we're very happy about that. So Keld, could you briefly introduce yourself as well? And unmute your mic.
Here we go. Hi, I'm Keld Hosbond. I'm the Vice Principal at the Royal Academy of Music in Aarhus and Aalborg. And I have some special tasks area, which are mainly international relations and entrepreneurship. And one of the things that we have been spending quite a lot of energy on during the last 4 or 5 years is actually to develop the concept of artistic citizenship, how it relates to running a music academy in reality on a daily basis. So it is at the core of our strategy as an academy, and it has been for quite many years already. And I think, to me, it is a bit of a shift of paradigm when it comes to music academies and art schools in general. It's an outward-looking focus instead of an inward-looking focus as an academy. It's a lot of about co-creation, which we have to learn a lot about how to make real co-creational processes. So I'm going to give my perspective on that.
Thank you so much, Keld. And as I mentioned in the beginning, my name is Camilla. I am also employed at the Royal Academy of Music in Aarhus with Keld, but also handling this ANMAtalks initiative. I am myself also very interested in this topic, and I did my master's thesis around Meeting in Music was the title. So that was also based on artistic citizenship and exploring that concept. I would like to ask you, what does the term artistic citizenship mean to you? Keld kind of started a bit on it already, but maybe Eline, would you like to start by sharing your perspective? Then we can check your sound as well.
How is my sound, Camilla? Is it better?
It's a bit better, yeah.
That doesn't sound very positive.
Bit better or less worse. You could interpret it both ways, but we can hear what you're saying, so don't worry, Eline, it's fine.
I'm sorry for that. For me, as an artist, artistic citizenship, it means that I contribute to society. I feel that I have a social engagement. I want to be engaged in my society, and I think it's very important to do that as with art and connecting people through art, also connecting with an audience, but not only with an audience, also bring the audience in art and within what you do, share it with one another. And I think the most important aspect is that I strongly believe that art can help building and shaping a society, a community. So I think that's a very important thing that I believe in. And the question that I asked myself already as a student is, how can I, as an artist, contribute to my society? And that's what I did with speaking with refugees, singing with refugees, bringing them together through music, and in that way trying to contribute to the society. Yeah, for me that's artistic citizenship.
Thank you, Eline. Maria, what about you?
I would say it's a way of engaging with citizenship through the arts. And I also think then citizenship is perhaps something broader than when we think about this as a kind of legal status or having a passport and so on. Like citizenship is also a way of trying to address shared practices. And there is one of the scientists, like a political scientist like James Tully, he talks about that instead of thinking about citizenship from just a historical or a more legal point of view, we can also think about citizenship as engaging in our communities and share the practice and also negotiate the practices. And I think when it comes to the arts, this is really important when we're thinking about being more inclusive in the arts, and also that it's more a kind of horizontal relationship with the arts. So it's not just us as professionals going out helping others, but also give accessibility to explore the arts for people who haven't done it before for different reasons, and also being this idea of co-creation, that this is a way of actually shaping our society, find perhaps not solutions, but ways to engage in society and engage in each other through the arts. And I think this is something we have and need to explore a lot according to the context where we are, and also think about that, of course, it's very important in a situation with vulnerability, but it's also a kind of everyday praxis that we have also. And I think also this relationship between the professional artist and the amateurs is something we also have to negotiate or talk about more. Is there a kind of barrier that we have this kind of professional and the amateur, and is this similar thing in different contexts, or can we look upon that in different ways? So I think also there is a kind of resistance to the concept of artistic citizenship, where it's interpreted as some kind of just very obedient way of being an artist. They just listen to, okay, so I have to do this because that's part of my duty. But included in the concept of citizenship, generally, it's also that you can also resist. You can actually go against things that are not working well for your community. So I think that is a possibility to do also through the arts, and part of artistic citizenship, the way it's been interpreted so far, and I think specifically from David Elliott, Marisa Silverman, and Wayne Bowman, is this kind of activism in it, which is perhaps not the only way of interpreting artistic citizenship, but part of it. But we can also look at it as a kind of everyday practice where arts is a way of engaging in citizenship.
And Maria, I was wondering, in your introduction, you mentioned the concept of musicking, and I think maybe not everyone is familiar with that. Would you mind just putting a few words on that as well?
Yeah, so it's a concept that Christopher Small, this interpretation of music, Christopher Small was actually highlighting a lot in the late 1990s of musicking as a verb, a process of being part of a musical performance, or a musical experience, that there are so many ways of engaging musically. It can be to perform yourself, but also to listen, to prepare for a performance, through dance movements, and so many ways. And it's also a way to look at the kind of social relationships that are actually part of a musical performance. And I think this is also a lot when we think about performer and audience. There are many ways of thinking about it, which direction these kind of relationships are. Are they mutual, or because the performer is often also dependent on the response from the audience, or is it a one-way direction, and so on. And musicking is also I think a very useful concept in music education, the way you facilitate for music class or for a musical performance. Also to think about the different aspects and different ways of people engaging in music, and at different times, and so on. And also a way of building relationships, if we look at these kind of extra musical perspectives in this.
Thank you so much. And Keld, what does artistic citizenship mean to you?
Well, it's a big concept, and it's a big question. And I've been following the concept actually for some decades. It's not a new thing. It was a big discussion in the UK in the 90s, for instance. And it was at that point of time, it was a question of democratization of art. So as Maria just mentioned, it can be also the concept of who is actually the artist. It changes the concept of the relationship between the artist and the audience. Maybe there's not a strict distinction between those if you go deeper into the democracy aspect of citizenship. And that's why it sometimes provokes a bit in the art sphere, because it also questions the discussion about excellence and who has the right to be called an artist. But that is more of a theoretical discussion, and I think the way we have been working with artistic citizenship at the Royal Academy of Music in Denmark is to kind of how to put it into practice. How can we connect the theoretical level with the practical level? And for that reason, we developed a strategy based on artistic citizenship. Sometimes we draw it as a triangle, and in the top, and that's the traditional conservatory approach, is the quality question. You need to be a good musician. If you enter a music academy, you have to go through a quite heavy entrance examination, which is sort of the official label that now you are officially on your journey to becoming an artist. And so the question of musical or artistic quality is, of course, always really relevant. And in old times, that was more or less what an art school was about. It was sort of a black box. You would go into that black box and become an artist, and then you would come out of the black box and be an artist. And I think that's the old paradigm that we are moving away from slowly but surely. So like 10 years ago, we started talking a lot about entrepreneurship and how you would open your eyes to the commercial side of being an artist, to let in the money perspective. You could call it market value. So that's what we call the second part of the triangle. That's, of course, you have to be aware that if you want to be an artist on the longer term, you have to have what you can call financial sustainability. So that's not a new thing either. But lately, during the last, especially 5 years, the concept of artistic citizenship is slowly coming in and adding a third part of the triangle, and that is what we could call social relevance, or in total you could call it the question about relevance. Why are you an artist, and what kind of meaningfulness do you want to create? So that's sort of the third part of the whole idea about being an artistic citizenship, in the meaning that you are a professional artist. You are aware of the market forces. You're not afraid of them. You try to connect with them, but you also have a sharp look at the relevance question: what kind of positive change can you make in society? So if you have that triangle in your head, whenever you make social, what we could call social musical interventions, or whatever you want to choose to label the term, you are on the right track to being an artistic citizen. This is, of course, quite superficial, and if you dig deeper into the concept of citizenship, there's a lot of pitfalls, and we might want to discuss that a bit more, but that's an introduction.
Thank you, Keld. And moving on from that, I think it would be interesting to hear if you were to come up with some concrete examples of artistic citizenship being done, so to say, in practice. What would those be? I think, Eline, I'm sure you have an example or two for us.
I think I have an example where you were there, Camilla. I don't know if you remembered, but some years ago we did summer school together, and we went to an elderly home to play music with them. And for me, that was a great example of artistic citizenship. It's a little bit like Maria said. It's not only the professional and the amateur. It's breaking, for me, it's breaking down that barrier between I'm here on this big stage and you are there, and that music social intervention where you connect with people where you are playing with or for. Both can audience can be, you know, both ways. But yeah, so one of the examples is that going as a music student to an elderly home, playing music for them, and, you know, feeling that connection, and also playing music with them, seeing how it can bring people together, give a lot of smiles and happiness, and people that have doing stuff, sitting in the room for years, just lighting up by people playing music. That's one thing I remembered. And a second example is how is my microphone? Is it better?
Much better.
There you go. Now it's just my voice that's not really good, but good that my microphone is back. And the second example that I can give is in that preparation of the parade together with people with mental disabilities. I had the experience of one person that couldn't speak because of his disabilities, stood up out of the circle we were sitting in with more than 30 people, signed that he wanted to conduct. So I was conducting, but he wanted to conduct, and he just did it. He conducted a big group of 30 people, four voices, and that was one of my most beautiful moments as a music student, to see that there was a safe space created where people that with no musical background had the feeling that they could participate in a big role into this artist, and being the artist himself, and engaging with that. So that's two examples for me.
Thank you, Eline. I was thinking, connected with that, doing music for people or with people, and the whole idea of breaking down this barrier between the stage and the, let's call it the musical space or the musical meeting place, is very interesting. Also in terms of the question Keld asked, namely, who is the artistic citizen in that context? Is it everyone? Can you be more a citizen than the others? Or do you know what I mean? more artistic, you could probably answer yes to that question in terms of the whole quality discussion. Maybe not, I don't know. But focusing on the citizenship part, that is where things get a bit more blurry, in my opinion. Maria, do you have some concrete examples as well to share with us?
Yeah, I can share an example about a project in Sweden that I was following. It's called Spelrum. It's a way of saying play or playroom. It was initiated as a kind of integration project in the city of Örebro, which to some extent is quite a segregated city in Sweden. It was also an arts project where music, visual art, and dance actually became very important activities. And those who initiated it were musicians. And it actually was made in a way that integration was a big part of the agenda, but it was also integration into each other's practices, and so it wasn't to be integrated in this city only or in Sweden. So actually, the repertoire that was played in this group was very broad. It had people who participated, especially in the music workshops. They explored repertoire from all around the world, and also the musicians who were there were also from very different contexts and countries in the world. So it was also a way of sharing focus on who was directing these sessions, who was the kind of artistic leader for those. There was a big variety in professional background. Some of them were music teachers, some were professional musicians, some were amateurs. But somehow they worked together in a way, so they actually have found a way to play music from all around the world. They play within this group. They also perform quite a lot in the city and around the city in different constellations and in a big group. And the important thing is also that the ones who are in charge or directing the musical activities, that's also kind of circulating. So it's not always the same person who leads or arranges. And you could see that there are students from the School of Music, for instance. They are very interested to take part in this. There are also people who work in the local cultural school, but also amateurs or fiddlers in the folk dance, or people who sing, who just like to take part. And I think the important thing here is that together they share a lot of new repertoire. So this is a kind of also musical bond that they learn. They also perform together for another audience, but they become like a group together. And something that's really important here is also that it's not just, now we're playing her music or his music or their music. It's actually that it becomes the kind of common repertoire. And I think that's also very important. And I think it takes a lot of time to negotiate and to find a way to have this kind of integration process. But the important thing is that many people who were actually born in Sweden have also joined this project because they also want to be integrated in the city and meet all citizens in the city, not just their normal group. So it's really a very important meeting point, musically and artistically, in the city.
And I think we're going to move on a bit to why is this important at all? Why do we even want to bother with this complex, strange concept of going into society at all? Yes, Eline, I can see you raised your hand. Why bother?
I don't know if it's also in the northern countries, but as in Belgium, a lot of people ask it in the other way around. Why being a musician? Why being an artist? Why should we give money in order to let people express their artistry. And I think that if you turn that question around, artistic citizenship is for me the answer to that. It's not only we in that black box, as Keld mentioned. I love the vision of it, because it was that way, or it still is a little bit, if I may say that. But if we open that black box and bring artists back to the society, I think no one else will ask why art, why do we need art. I think if we change that around and feel it like it's a responsibility, and there we go to the question, is it our responsibility? But for me it is. If we see it as a responsibility to give something back as an artist to the society, to the community, that question won't be asked again. In my opinion, we won't be in an ivory tower very high where only the rich people can see us and only see us, but never engage with us. Oh no, please don't engage with us. So if we break that down, it means so much more for the community and for the society. So for me, that's why.
Thank you, Eline. Keld, why bother?
Just to continue on your Elen, which I totally agree on. I like it that you use the term to bring the artists back to society, because in a way I think there has been a disconnect through maybe, I don't know how many decades, but many decades. But throughout the music history, I think there has been a closer connection between artists and society than we have seen during the welfare state years since the Second World War. And I think there is now we sort of realize that, okay, we need to get back. We need to bring the concept of art and society closer together again. Otherwise, it's just going to be something that, as you say, the privileged people, they can attend. And when we see the tendencies in the concert halls and in the music schools, it's mainly the rich people's kids attending music school and so on. It's a major problem, because art is not for the few ones. It is something, it's a human, it's a part of the human DNA, I would say. So there is a natural connection here that we need to insist on bringing into balance. And one way of doing that is to work in the art schools, because that's where we have the young generation coming in. We can have some impact there, and we can do it through the way we structure our music academies and of course also the music schools for kids and so on. So it's a larger shift of paradigm, as I started out saying, and I think we need to explore the concept of relevance much more, as you also touched upon, Elen. Why do we have institutions if it is not for reaching out to the large majority of people?
Thank you, Keld. And before I'm going to ask Maria why bother with this at all, I can see that we have a comment from Anders. Anders, are you comfortable with unmuting and speaking out, or?
Of course.
Thank you.
No problem. Well, there's a lot of perspectives and to talk about. We had a chamber music symposium here in Gothenburg a few weeks ago, and I raised the question because everyone was pretty worried about the chamber music and so on for the future. And I asked a question that I think is very important, and that is a part of what we're talking about. Where do we perform chamber music? And then I took the example of Gothenburg, and here we have areas you can never meet chamber music, because if you really look into it in detail, almost everything is located in central of Gothenburg and also connected with high ticket prices. So I think that is one perspective, and what we are doing right now, and take the opportunity, because we are going to move out for 4 years, because there will be a new faculty and new buildings of performing arts. And that is to find out new areas, and especially I would say new areas where we know that people never meet different kind of music. And that I think will be something for the future. As an example, on master level, we have a demand examination that you, when you get your exam in chamber music, you do it in front of a board and also an audience. But that we traditionally always do at Artisten, our concert hall. Well, we move it out because we can do the examination, but maybe with a little bit different audience than traditional. That is just one example. You can do something pretty easily to, and the last thing, I think this is very important because some of you have talked about it. How can we prepare our students for the future? And that is a very concrete way to, you have to work for it. If you really believe in what you're doing, you have to work for it and also be aware of the society isn't the same as 50 years or 30 or 20 years ago. The last thing, what I think as a representative of an academy is to ask the question, what does it mean to be an academy of the arts in society? I think that question you must bring with you all the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anders. Well, relevant points. You are literally being forced into society by not having a room. I like that. That's a very good way of reframing a challenge that you're facing into something productive even. So Maria, why bother?
Well, I can connect to what Anders just said. I think we have to think about arts for whose sake. And that that's a relevant question, and that when we're talking about artistic citizenship, it's one aspect or one dimension of artistic practices, something we do. It's not all we do, it's something we do and can do, and that's also very important about the quality, you can say, but also the dynamic in actually the artistic practice, that something happens to it. There are new meetings, new kind of constellations that actually affect how we practice the arts, which also this aspect of artistic citizenship means. I've been interviewing quite a lot of professional musicians and educators, and I think something that's really very important is that they say that it affects the way they compose or the way they arrange or the way they perform in just by being active in more relevant social and emotionally connected situation, like we can say artistic citizenship is. That could, for instance, be Anders was talking about the chamber music, and I've been working in Brazil, and there was one youth chamber music ensemble that was actually working a lot in performing in very unexpected places. It could be in the metro or in the subway. It could be in the streets or in the marketplace, even in the beach in Rio, where actually people normally don't meet this kind of performances. And that was also a way of connecting the arts to it. But also the leaders of those projects, they said that in their repertoire, when they were performing in concert halls and so on, they have actually been affected in a very positive way in the way they engage and the way they perform, just by engaging in these kind of initiatives outside the box that they previously perhaps have been more involved in.
For sure. Thank you so much, Maria. Of course, since I'm asking this kind of, at least it's meant to be a bit provoking, the question, why bother with this complex thing? I'm going to try to answer it myself as well. That's only fair. In my opinion, and this word hasn't come up yet, but let's see how you react to it. It's all about curiosity, because sparking and inspiring curiosity in society is, in my opinion, a very, very important function of the arts, because one thing is that the artists benefit themselves from being curious. They gain new perspectives on their work, and maybe perspectives from somebody that they wouldn't normally meet. That's also why the meeting new audiences part, in my opinion, is very, not only new audiences, but maybe new people in general, is very important. But the other part of it is that if curiosity is kind of woven into the way we meet other people, in my experience, that is where we can bridge differences that might be otherwise difficult to bridge. So I think the best kind of image that I have as a concrete example of it is that I was working with a group of elderly people with refugee backgrounds at some point, and my role was to first do a bit of gymnastic exercises with them, not the jumping over huge things, but just stretching your shoulders and stuff like that, and then bridging into some kind of music. And we always started with that I was sitting at the table with them having coffee and then singing them a song. And one day I brought a kalimba with me. And when I finished the song on the kalimba, I just left it on the table and then looked the other way. And very quickly, this kalimba started to being passed around the table, and people had kind of a moment with it. And I brought one where you can't play a wrong note. It was a pentatonic kalimba. So it can't sound bad. It's impossible to make it sound bad. And it was very interesting to see how these small moments of curiosity suddenly started entering the room without me having done anything else than playing the kalimba and leaving it, and then talking to someone else. And I think that to me is an example of how small artistic citizenship could be, how small an action it could be. Then it doesn't have to always be huge projects. It has to be that as well. But I think this whole idea of how do we as artists facilitate curiosity in society is, for me, the reason to bother. That was a very long talk. I'm sorry, Keld.
Yeah, I like your concept of curiosity, and I think it also goes for, you could call it institutional curiosity, because at the core of artistic citizenship is the concept of co-creation. And how do you explore co-creation as an institution? That is by engaging with a lot of partners that you wouldn't normally expect to work together with. And this creates sometimes challenges, because it's much easier to work with other artists if you are an artist yourself. But it's much more difficult to connect, for example, with healthcare people or elderly caretakers or people working with refugees or whatever kind of, or even, you know, totally other spheres of society. So we have to dig much deeper into how do we actually work and strengthen our competences when it comes to co-creation. Sometimes it is to create a third platform. If you engage with, we have quite a lot of experience now working with health, art and health. And what I see is that sometimes the different spheres, they don't understand each other. So they are sort of, you know, conflicting a little bit. And then you have to create a third space, which is more neutral, where you can actually find a way to talk together and through curiosity, explore each other's worlds. And in that way, you can develop the citizenship part of the encounter.
And if I can add to that, and we have a tendency, and I love everything about that, don't misunderstand me, but to the minute we start talking about artistic citizenship, we start talking about elderly people, vulnerable groups, refugees, but ordinary people, or ordinary is definitely the wrong word, but you know what I mean? Someone who you could meet in the supermarket, who might not have any of the challenges that I just described. That's a better description than ordinary for sure. Also need to be curious. And it's a general need. it's not only if you're vulnerable or if you're in a difficult position. It's really everyone that would benefit from this. Eline, you have a comment?
Yeah, and I think music is a great way to explore that curiosity and bringing people together. Keld was saying about that triangle and finding common ground. And I think if you take it to society where sometimes people with disabilities find themselves isolated and others find it difficult to find that connection, maybe music can be that third circle where you can be curiosity together in finding common grounds. That's something I wanted to add to those two stories.
Sure. Let me just see what I have here. We've talked a bit about it already, but the concept of institutional curiosity kind of leads me toward what's going to be the final question before we open up for everyone to ask questions if you have some, which is, okay, then we have kind of established that we agree, very unexpectedly, no, but that it's a good idea to implement this in higher music education. So how can it be embraced? Should it be embraced inside the academies? Should it be embraced by going outside the academies? Yeah, the floor is yours. Yes, Keld?
Well, obviously, this is something that we have been given quite a lot of consideration, how to implement the good ideas. Because one thing is to have a good idea, another thing is to implement it. And I think this is not something we should force upon everybody. This is it's something that has to grow within each individual. But what we can do is to facilitate the possibility of artists reaching out. And this can be done through curriculum development. For instance, we are working with building up an elective course that all students can attend if they want to. Actually, see, Margrethe is here with us, and Margrethe has been an important part of this build-up. Maybe you can comment, Margrethe, afterwards. And I think by creating this partnership with other institutions around your institution, you can facilitate the possibility that the students and teachers will start reaching out from their position.
So it's more a matter of facilitating than it is of teaching necessarily, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's always when we talk about empowerment and that kind of psychological developments, force is not a good tool. You have to make possibilities and to create an awareness of the fact that actually this is about meaningfulness. It will make your life as a musician much better and longer, maybe even if you start reaching out and doing projects with other kinds of people.
Sure. Margrethe, are you comfortable with with being recorded while making a comment?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I totally agree also with Keld, because I have this elective, or we just started, in fact, a couple of years ago, we started this elective course, Music and Health, and it's quite broad subject because, of course, music health is very many different things, or different, and can cover very many different areas of people, as you also said, Camilla, not only very sick people, but also health people. But this elective course, Music and Health, is really about curiosity and also developing ideas, your own ideas, and then fulfilling them by doing a 6-week internship, very different places. We have conducted one student did a project last year working with COVID late effects patients at the hospital, and another singer did a singer-songwriting project with vulnerable children in the organization Save the Children. and she's actually engaged there today. So that's also the aim of these initiatives and this elective course, for them to use their musicianship in the community to create some kind of new meaning of musicianship in this setting. Also, really to develop their artistic development, artistic awareness. And add to this, I'm doing at the moment an artistic research project where I investigate, I focus on this artistic awareness in the intensive care unit setting, where students from the academy, they perform there, and then we have this discussion, what is at stake here, what is important for them to develop their musical integrity and their sensitivity in this setting. So well, that was just a comment on this institutional aspect of artistic citizenship, which I find very exciting. And I also really I've been working within this field since 2005, and I've really have experienced a really great interest among young musicians, having their different ideas in the setting, and really have the urge really to fulfill these ideas and working within this field in the future, also as a musician.
Thank you so much, Margrethe.
Welcome.
Maria, do you have anything to add to this from the CReArC side? Are you also thinking of how to implement this? I'm sure you are, but in what way?
We are implementing it in the curriculum where I work, because all our students, whether they are performers, composers, or producers, they take a course in music education, and we have also worked changed our curriculum so it will actually address both their own development and also the balance between, but because they are also students, they also finding their own musical identity and musical expression while they are in their education, but also to find a kind of balance where they also can see how their work can be part of a bigger society. Some of them are already involved in that, others haven't been. And so I think in our music education course, we try to find a good balance between their own musical identity development and also how that can relate to other contexts. And I think that's really important, because if we don't give the time, we just say immediately, like, now you have to go out and do something with music. We also skip that stage where they find the balance between their own development and the development together with others. And I think this kind of balance is always important. Then also, we have also changed a bit the way we work as educators, that we work more as teams, and this kind of curiosity approach is something that we use a lot too, that we actually work as teacher teams with our students, which means that we are not always, just talking from our own point of view, that we also have to negotiate and also be in context where we actually can have different contributions, different ideas about and I think that's also when we talk about diversity, which is a key point when we work with the arts and when we work with citizenship. It's also important in our programs, in the curriculums, that we actually work in a diverse way also to show that, and that can prepare students also to work further on in the bigger society.
Thank you so much, Maria. We have reached a point where we're almost out of time. Do we have any questions, comments from the people who are here? Again, if you don't want to be recorded, you're welcome to write in the chat as well. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it up to the panel if you have any final words to say to this. We've got it all done. We know what to do, know how to implement it, know how to do it in reality. Everything is going now. It's easy peasy. It's been so great having you here for this session. I think we have some very relevant points to take with us from today, and also your final point, Maria, with you also need to find your own way and need to step into these contexts as yourself, knowing what your musical identity is. That's also an important part. It's not only going into, everyone else's contexts. You also need to bring who you are into it. We have a very short, and I promise it's going to take you 30 seconds at most to fill out this brilliant evaluation form that I have now posted in the chat. I'm always trying to come up with new ways of selling this evaluation form, but please fill it out. It's going to help us come up with more relevant topics in the future. And thank you so much for joining us today. Just open this in your browser and then I will put you in the rating room. Thank you.